lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing Cuckoo, which was released August 10th, 2024, exclusively in theaters. Rowan, I feel like this is another neon horror release that I've been hearing about pretty much all year long. I think it had like an earlier release back in like February. It hit up a couple of festivals, got delayed. So now here we are. Cuckoo's marketing, despite hearing about it for the better part of a year, was nowhere near as strong as Longlegs was. But were you still looking forward to Cuckoo?
Yeah, I was interested because I was like, oh yeah, that's that Clive Owen movie. Because for some reason, the entire time I thought Clive Owen was in this for some reason.
Clive Owen? What horror movie is he in coming up?
Nothing, I don't think. For some reason, I was like, oh yeah, Clive Owen's in that one. And then if you watch
I feel like I haven't heard about that guy in 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, I was intrigued mostly because not only did I think Clive Owen was in this, but I had no idea what it was about. You know, with Longlegs having such like a great marketing, as you said, like plan, we kind of knew what we were going into with Longlegs. Like we knew it was going to be this serial killer, like, you know, Silence of the Lambs influence type thing, where this I had like no idea. Like I did see the trailer, I still really didn't have any idea what this was about, but you know, we've kind of been setting up this epic battle of the Neon Boys versus the A24 boys. So I'm gonna ride for Neon hard.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna ride for A24 whenever I can. But I will say, obviously, this summer I was very much looking forward to Longlegs and Cuckoo. For this one, I didn't see the trailer. I went in completely blind for this one, and essentially all I knew about it was Dan Stevens was in it, doing another like kooky, funny accent I've heard people saying. And Hunter Schafer, obviously, I knew was starring in it, but I've never seen her in really anything. I've never watched Euphoria, which I think was kind of what she broke out in, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like she was on that TV show.
I saw, I think, most of the first season of Euphoria. And it's one of those shows I liked. I just never got around to. I'm bad at television, but she's great in that. She was in that really bad Hunger Games movie.
Well, I was gonna say the only thing I legitimately know her from is as the sister of like young President Snow in the Hunger Games prequel movie. What was it, Songbirds and Snakes or whatever it was? So yeah, I mean, basically the reason I was looking forward to this was solely based off of the fact that it was a neon production, and you know they had Longlegs earlier this year, and this was the other kind of genre thing that they've been marketing and kind of hyping up. And it was releasing this summer.
She was in Kinds of Kindness, too.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet, Rowan. It didn't come to St. John's, so I'll definitely check that out when it's on VOD, and I'll see how she was in that. But I'm just not super familiar with her work. So should you heed the Cuckoo's calling? Well, before we get into that, let's throw it on over to the trailer.
Giving you the chance to be of great use in our quest for preservation. The adolescent needs to be trained.
What you just heard is from Cuckoo, written and directed by Tillman Singer. And the story is as follows. After reluctantly moving to the German Alps with her father and his new family, Gretchen discovers that their new town hides sinister secrets as she's plagued by strange noises and frightening visions of a woman pursuing her. Now here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth spoiler-filled discussion. So Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on Cuckoo?
Let's start this off with 6 very strong words. Those 6 words are Dan Stevens. We're so back, baby. We're so back.
I mean, he was in like Godzilla and Kong doing the same thing 2 months ago.
Right. That's right. Dan Stevens getting that money, doing wild accents. I'm here for it. It's kind of like I'm here for wild Nicolas Cage performances. Dan Stevens get that money. But this was, I thought this was like a very pleasant surprise. No Clive Owen, a little disappointed there. So
you were just hanging there the whole movie like, man, when is Clive Owen showing up?
Is Clive Owen the villain or what's going on
the
here?
third act reveal, yeah.
I mean, so we will give it that down point. It's going to get downgraded in the rating because of no Clive Owen. But yeah, you know what? I thought this was a very twisty, very turny. I feel like we're going to have a lot of kind of spoiler section conversations. Yeah. But you know what? Like, I thought this was a very slow build in the front, a slow burn, as you will, and I enjoyed it. And it goes wild, and I don't know about your audience. I was at a sold out audience crowd for this on Saturday afternoon, the first showing of it at like 2 in the afternoon, sold out. I don't know if the evening ones also are that busy, but I feel the third act, we kind of started losing people. There was like, you could just tell like the guy beside me, his attention started going elsewhere, and
he was on TikTok.
Yeah, doing something. But I will say, I was in for the ride for this. Just full ride. I love the twists and turns. The music, fantastic. I shouldn't have said Dan Stevens were so back, baby. I wrote Exilia and let her know, Exilia, your musical tastes are so back, baby. Like, I can't think of how many horror movies in the last year have just been like Exilia's Spotify playlist, just banging in this. I thought the score in this was fantastic. The music was fantastic. Hunter Schafer as this like moody teenager, I guess. Did they say how old she was in it? I can't really remember. Like, I think they said she's like 17.
She's just turning 18, I believe.
Turning 18,
just about to, yeah.
I thought she was fantastic in this. Like I said, I saw her in Euphoria, and I haven't seen Euphoria like since it came out that first season. She's in Kind's Kindness, but she's not like a huge role in that. Yeah. So I was very curious how she would do, and I thought she did good as this kind of angsty lesbian like punk rocker, or I don't know if I call it punk rock, but playing some sort of
it's still moody,
moody
she's like
music.
Slapping the bass,
slapping
like,
the bass, yeah,
just she's definitely like that tomboyish sort of character, obviously.
But I just thought it was like, it's such an interesting world they build, because this whole film really has you like, I know I felt throughout it like you don't really know what's going on. It's like one of those artsy horror indie movies where very A24, where it's just like something's off for the first half. You're like, people are acting weird. People are acting strange. Why are they being like this? It's just like an odd vibe. And I was like totally locked into this. The big reveal twist to what's going on in the spoiler section. Like I said, we're so back. We're so back. Neon, we're here. What about you? First reactions. What's going on?
You comparing this to like an A24 movie and saying slow burn, it didn't feel like that to me at all. This was like a weird ass movie. As I was watching it,
I felt
like,
it was too long. Honestly,
I agree. It was a little bit too long, and I was like, this is quirky. This is zany. This is just like, once again, weird. Like, as I was watching it, I had no idea what I was getting into. And right off the bat, with just like the cold open, the world they're setting up and stuff, I'm just like, dude, what is this movie? This is bizarre. So, obviously A24 does some weird shit too, but like Long Legs felt like a lot more akin to an A24 movie, where this just felt like something different. Like, it felt very strange, like almost like foreign film sensibilities at certain points in it when I was watching it. Almost like something like A Lobster or something by Yorgos Lanthimos or something when I was watching. Like, not in terms of like the dark humor and comedy, but just in like just a weird world that this director set up. Right off the bat, I thought a lot of the technicals and whatnot were really strong. I liked a lot of subtle and then also not so subtle camera techniques that are like used throughout the movie. There's a scene early on in a bathroom stall where essentially like someone comes into the washroom, they're trying to get into the stall, and they go into the stall next door, and just the way the camera kind of like extends the length of like the bathroom stall, and like, how it all blurs and comes into focus, and it very much gives this vibe that something's gonna peek over, I thought was really effective. And then obviously, without getting into spoilers, there's like recurring kind of like shaky cam, or kind of like almost like that Jaws Vertigo sort of camera techniques employed like quite a bit throughout the movie that I thought was pretty good for what it was doing. Like, it was evocative and it was kind of doing what it needed to do. Outside of that, this was the sort of thing where I was like, the first act I thought was very strong. I thought it had good vibes. Once again, it was weird. It was setting up this mystery. I very much liked Gretchen's character of, like, you said punk rock. I was kind of like, it's like, she is obviously like a rebellious teenager, listening to the music loud, playing the guitar, very like grungy looking appearance. And I kind of liked that vibe that the movie kind of had. It was really like asynchronous against like this Alp, resort setting that I thought was interesting. She felt very out of place. Like literally the house that her family is like moved into or staying at. Like it reminds me of the Parasite house, like the very wealthy Parasite house up on the hill.
Our minds go to totally different places. I was like, man, this reminds me of the Human Centipede house, but
okay, well,
very much the same, just the windows and
the all the glass and kind of like the squares, this brutalist design. Just like I was like, this is strange. But I do think as the movie goes on, it kind of starts to focus more on the plot and the narrative to a certain degree, like obviously revealing and peeling back the mystery, unveiling stuff. But it's just, for me, a lot of like these little character moments or kind of like these stylistic trappings kind of fall by the wayside. Like, for example, like Hunter Schafer doesn't play guitar again, I don't think, at any point in the movie. She barely listens to music at really any point in the movie after kind of like, once again, the first like 20 minutes setting up things. There's also like just some little details that, once again, it's just like, it's almost like these aspects of conflict just, fall by the wayside the more we go on. So it gets a little bit messy, is what I'll say. And there's definitely just like kind of points in the movie where I was basically just hinging on like, okay, what's the next scare gonna be? Or just kind of watching like Schaefer's performance and like how good she was at times in this movie. Also, like when the horror is revealed, there is just some inherent goofiness in it. And they also show, the monster, if you want to call like what we're dealing with in the movie, like way too much, like way too much. Like literally I was exhausted of this like entity or creature or whatever within the first probably like 50 minutes of the movie. And boy, they come around like quite a bit in the third act of the movie. So I was just like, I was a little over it. Dan Stevens, thought he was great. I don't know.
Awesome.
I saw
he was
some
incredible.
I saw some people hating on him. I'm like, bro, do your weird ass German accent and, speak a bit of German and, be this zany character. I was completely into it. It fit this weird ass world that, Tillman Singer was kind of like building up. So yeah, I mean, did I like the movie? It's kind of like a weird question of like, is this something I could like, full-throatedly like recommend people rush out and see? It's like, I'm not really 100% sure, but like, I think I liked it. I guess I'd recommend you go see it. My theater wasn't very full. It was like 4 or 5 people, and I don't think people liked it very much, was kind of the vibe I got at the end of it. What about you? Would you recommend people go check this one out?
I'm going to recommend it. Okay,
all right.
I think it's got enough kind of twists and turns, even if they don't land. Like, it seemed for the majority of the time, like I said, mine was a sold-out crowd, and it seemed that most people were having like a lot of fun with it and just the zaniness of where it was going. I did kind of make sure it was kind of funny because it's very rare it happens, but we leave, we're throwing out garbage, and there's 3 people, which were the 3 people sitting beside me, and one of the guys checked out like halfway through, but they were ahead of me and they were actually like talking loudly about just like what they liked, what they didn't like. All 3 of them very much the same as you, where they were like, man, I was really into it. And like, it just kind of like, as it revealed more and more, they were just like, it was getting zanier and zanier. And they were like, I feel like it really fell apart in this third act.
Yeah. For me, this is similar to like something like The Watchers. Like I'll go out and say it's better than The Watchers, but like The Watchers, it brought me in like back in June with just kind of like its premise and kind of like hinting at things. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And the more it revealed, it just completely lost me, that one, where I was like, oh my God, this is like a Harry Potter movie or something silly now. This one doesn't go that far, but there is some real goofy shit that I know like some of our listeners will be like cracking up at, like some of the little scenes in this and like the third act, especially if you're not someone who can kind of just completely give yourself over to like this weird horror vibe that this is establishing. Like if this is like, if an over the top performance or like a goofy jump scare or something's gonna make you crack up laughing, like you will wind up laughing at this movie for sure in the latter half. It's just, it swings for the fences, and when you do that, you're going to isolate some of the audience for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, that's a recommendation from both of us. You know, with me, it's kind of like a, yeah, sure, I guess. It's, you know, it's interesting enough that I think you should go check it out. I don't think this is going to do like gangbusters at the block. God, I keep saying block office. Anyways, gangbusters at the box office, like, you know, Longlegs did earlier this summer. But, you know, I think it's probably worth your time if you're curious. If you saw the marketing or you saw the trailer and you're interested, probably go check it out. It's, you know, it didn't waste my time is what I'll say when I was watching it.
Put your money in the theater and show Neon that you all came out to see Clive Owen, but he wasn't there. So the next one, Clive Owen should be in it.
Cuckoo 2, coming soon. And with that, I think it's time to cut to the spoiler discussion for Cuckoo. We are now in our spoiler discussion for Cuckoo, so if you've not seen Cuckoo, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply don't care. Rowan, I think you should probably like double or triple, you know, when I say it's time to cut to the spoiler discussion for Cuckoo, because this movie employs some weird ass, you know, camera techniques, repeating scenes, you know, blacking out. I don't know specifically what you want to start off discussing in this section. I kind of right away, I want to talk about mommy in this movie. Just right away, I literally want to talk about like the monster or whatever this is in this movie.
Let's do it.
How do you feel about it? Like, what did you find her scary? Like, what was this? Yeah, what was the direction? What was the purpose of this?
She
creature?
wasn't scary. The creature from afar who ends up, I'm assuming the reveal, which you could tell my entire theater just didn't really get it. I'm assuming was her actual Gretchen's mother, right?
So I don't know if that's the case or not.
Yeah, but because at first I was like, who is this? Like, she seems pretty upset. She knows who this woman is. And then I was like, but it doesn't really look like the woman in the picture.
Yeah, the picture was also like so quick at like one scene in the movie that it's like, I don't know. And she had like sunglasses on and stuff like.
But you know what? That's the fun of this movie. Who cares? Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be. Like, I'm not sure because like the wig falls off. Do we ever find out what Gretchen's mother actually died from?
No, they never do say.
Yeah, so yeah, with like the hair kind of coming off and stuff, this almost feels like cancer or some sort of like cellular degradation or something that's ongoing, right? Because their hair is really patchy and whatnot. But anyways.
But yeah, like from afar, I don't even know how to describe it. She looks like, I don't know, a faraway distant shot of like, I don't know, Marilyn Monroe on the town, but
she
also
looks
a
like
golden
a fashionista.
Girl. Yeah,
a fashionista. Like she literally has like a scarf and like big sunglasses and like a blonde wig. And, you know, like I was just like, what is scary about this other than obviously like seeing it move quickly or, you know, out of the corner of your eye, like before they fully show like what she looks like when it's just quick glimpses, we're like, oh, that was weird.
And we
what
see
the
like
hell
the
that?
eyes light up,
yeah, the
which
red
are
eyes,
the sunglasses.
which is just so bad once again. But I was just like, this character or this entity was like never scary to me the whole movie. And man, they love showing her in the third act. She's all over the third act of this movie. And I was just like, is this supposed to be scary? I honestly don't know in the third act, like, if this movie's supposed to be scary. We got, like, you know, firefights, machine guns, mowing through shit. We got mommy crawling around and screeching all the time. It's just, like, it goes so far off the rails that I was just like, I don't know what is happening here.
It's weird because I had the same feelings to it, but I loved it because I was like, we're just throwing so much shit at the wall right now to see what's sticking. And like you said, it's like, I've got, like, gunfights off in one scene, I've got this monster movie in the other. You know, I just, the whole reveal of this monster, I was like, it's interesting because the entire marketing of this, I will say, I didn't have in my cards that I was coming in to some sort of creature feature monster movie. Like, I thought for sure this was going to be like a weird commune, like something like that. Like, kind of what you would see more in like an elevated horror type movie.
Yeah, Dan Stevens as like a cult leader.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Rituals and stuff like retreats. You know, I don't know.
People going
forced mating
nuts
and
or
shit
something.
like that. Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking almost something like Endless, if any of our listeners have seen that, The Endless. Like, something weird like that.
Yeah.
And I think I was just, like, so giddy of how wild it just turns, and you're like, whoa, this isn't it at all. I mean, never did I think going into Cuckoo it would be you talking about the Watchers and then me being like, oh yeah, it's kind of like a Happy Death Day too. Like we have this time traveling horror thing going on of repeating time.
The time loops, yeah, like
which I loved,
Cuckoo.
by the way. I loved it.
I think it was interesting. I just there was like aspects to it where I was just like I was wondering how long could this like little thing go on for, because it seems to repeat 3 times for most of the movie, but then there's a couple of times where it goes 4 or 5. Yeah, it's like they just didn't cover their ears in time, so it just keeps happening. Or is it like the monster needs more time to like make its way towards them, or like I don't know. They don't explain really the time traveling time loop element of that aspect to the movie.
I love the reveal of
it.
The scene with her and the guitar and her sister that's like having these seizures, just because, we didn't have this in the card. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Yeah. Like,
I was so confused too. I was like, this is so weird. But I was like, I was into it too at that point in time. Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, the scene where Gretchen meets Ed and they're in the car and the smoking, which... Also, like, I thought Ed was a great character, and I will say, like, another banger song of Martin Dupont, Inside Out, playing, just fantastic.
Absolutely crazy car scene, like, the way they do it, where it's just like, you're watching it go down the road, and then the camera itself just goes off by itself and spins through the air. And I was just like, okay, that's a good way to do, like, a low-budget car crash, I guess. And, just, like, horrific, everyone all beat up and whatnot.
I was very impressed with the camera work. I've never, like, did you ever see, I think it's called, like, Lose or Lud, like, his other...
No, I haven't seen it. Love, LUV, I think, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know, something. Yeah. Not like we have anything in front of us, like computers or phones or anything.
It's LUZ.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it either. I saw the poster, obviously, on Shudder.
Yeah. I might have to check it out. I'm just interested. Is this guy just wild all the time like this? Because I'm into it. It gave me, you know what else? I saw, this is a co-German production. A little It Slays podcast classic Dare Bunker.
Oh, no.
Which also about just awkward people and something not right and just it being off. So maybe this is just like a German thing and we don't get it.
That's just the classic Exilia pick. I remember just listening to that episode. I've never watched it, and I don't plan to watch it.
I'll send it. I bought it. I'll send it to you. You can watch it.
Oh,
it's
great.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I think we should discuss the actual, like, the Cuckoo aspect of this movie, where it's, it's about brood parasitism, where it's just literally like how the cuckoo bird, like, lays its eggs in other birds' nests, so they have to, like, raise the offspring, and then I think usually that bird grows larger and pushes the other offspring out of the nest and whatnot. Like, it's just like this.
I'm interested. Is that true?
It is. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. That is true. Yeah. It's like this brutal aspect of the animal kingdom. Like, basically the cuckoo bird is just like, a parasite. And this movie, as I was watching it, I was like, I was thinking so much about the reproductive cycle of these fucking weird creatures in this movie that I don't know. I was like distracted by like, what are they doing? What on earth is happening in this? So I think the first time we kind of see like explicitly what's happening is in this sequence that's probably like taking place in the lover's nest.
Yes.
I guess like, you hear the cuckoo sound and like this woman runs in and I think she's like assaulting Trixie, right? Like,
yeah.
Trixie, and she's like squat over and she's, motioning towards her like vaginal area and like scooping slime out. And I'm like, bro, what am I watching? Like, what is this? And like, it seems like they're getting ready to like inseminate Trixie with like this slime that the creature took from itself. And I was just like, okay, so is this like implanting like an egg? Is the man still gonna have to like fertilize it? Is this a fertilized embryo? Is this just goo? I didn't expect any of these questions as I went into this movie. And I don't know if I really liked it or not, but it was kind of creative. It was weird. It was the sort of thing like when I went to see Nope, I was expecting a UFO movie. And then when it turns into a creature feature, I was kind of like completely on board. With this one, I was like, it was probably a little bit closer to The Watchers, which spoilers for the watchers if you care, but like it winds up being all about fairies, and I was like, bro, I didn't go into this movie expecting fairies, right? This was like, I didn't go into this movie expecting brood parasitism, you know? I was just like, what am I watching? This is so bizarre.
Yeah.
But you loved it.
I loved it. It just got wilder and wilder. And like I said, I was like curious, you know, is this what these birds, this guy that, I can't even say his name, Mr. like Keon or something. Auxiliary tried to explain to me how you actually say it in German. I don't know how to say it.
Who is
like
it?
Dan Stevens.
Yeah, it was like Herr Koenig or something.
Yeah.
Or Koenig, or, yeah.
And like, you know, he's talking about these birds, and, you know, salute to the movie, because the whole time I'm like, man, I gotta go home and find out about these birds. These sound really interesting.
I gotta go watch some nature documentaries.
Yeah,
man.
like, man, this
Planet Earth. Come on, let's throw that on. Get some David Attenborough on here.
But I mean, I was just, like I said, I was in for the ride, the time travel. See, I think the time travel stuff kept me in it enough that I thought that was interesting enough that even though I felt the monster was like a little bit weak, I was like, oh, okay, the time travel. I will say I was a little disappointed that, you know, we like you said, I kind of understand they use this time travel so the monster can kind of, you know, do what it's going to do, and you're kind of just hypnotized in that spot, living these moments out. But I was like, I felt like they could have played this out for like different outcomes where, like, you know, something else would happen. But like a lot of the time, this hypnosis comes, and then especially in the third act, like nothing overly happens.
No, it seems to be always just a stunning the person that's being pursued, just to kind of close the distance. It has always kind of felt like to me the entire movie. And then obviously there's moments in the movie where, once again, like people they're assaulting or whatever, like they're completely unconscious.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like they're unconscious from like the monster closing the distance and smacking them in the head, or if it's just like, you know, the calling, the noise eventually disorients them enough that they like pass out or something. Like, I don't know, genuinely, from what we saw in the movie.
Yeah, well, and I was curious because I thought, oh, like, I wonder, you know, as the victim or whatever is like reliving this like time loop, I'm like, oh, could they like kill that person while they're in that, or, you know, do something so when they come out of it, it's like, oh, I'm missing an arm, or like something like, do they feel pain? Like, what's, you know, I was interested in the intricacies of this. And I also thought, you know, it was cool. I did like that, you know, in that third act, we have them like start to be like, oh, wearing headphones. And so, you know, they can't hear it. I do wish, like, you know, obviously we see the iPod or whatever, the MP3 player, and we're like, oh, okay. But to me, this is where, like, if I'm the guy working on the music for this, I'd be like, man, can we use this more times? And like, to me, I was like, this is how you put bangers in the movie. Like, use this as a crutch a couple times. We'd have a couple bangers playing, except like the song she's listening to when they actually get to hear what's in the iPod. Like, it's whatever. It's not a banger.
Yeah, like for me, that's where like kind of like the energy of the first third of the movie was a little bit more prevalent. Like, for example, one of the highlight scenes for me is probably like the nighttime bike ride, purely just because it was built up. It was built up enough by like Dan Stevens basically saying, like, don't go out at night. And like her seeing like a woman kind of stumble in just only wearing a shirt, vomiting on the floor, which, man, people are just stumbling into this, you know, place all the time, vomiting on the floor, and nobody bats an eye, where I'm just like, okay, I understand morning sickness is a thing. I understand, you know, people might drink too much and vomit on the floor. But when it happens like 2 or 3 days in a row, it prompts a question of like, man, why are these people always stumbling in here and vomiting on the floor? Anyways, the bike sequence I thought was very effective because she's listening to the music. She's kind of racing down the road. We kind of have that almost like the repetition of like, we don't know if it's a time loop or not because she's driving, kind of the camera's focused at like the lights passing by, and you kind of see the shadow of her bike progress and the shadow of her bike progress, and it keeps happening over and over again, which if you've ever, you know, ridden a bike at night, like obviously that's natural when you're just flying down the road or going down a hill, like that repetition. And then there's obviously the one where there's the shadow getting closer behind her and then you see the mommy or whatever. But I thought that sequence was really effective in kind of like the mixture of like the music that she was listening to, which was the mood of kind of the beginning of the movie, putting the horror in there, kind of like some unique camera work and imagery and stuff. And obviously it culminates in her kind of like rushing to the hospital and smacking her head, which I was like, okay, this is going to be the excuse that we use now to kind of launch this movie into like zanier, territory where it's like, oh, it could be all in her head. But the movie actually doesn't go in that direction. It never uses that as an excuse. This character of Gretchen just gets beat the fuck for most of this movie. I was surprised with how just beaten down she is by the end of this movie with her head gets beat up. She breaks an arm. She gets her face scratched. She gets I don't know, man. She's war torn by the end of this movie. I was genuinely surprised, and I thought Hunter Schafer did a good job of actually conveying that her character was messed up, that it was beat up, that it was taking a toll on her. I thought it was pretty effective. I liked seeing her as a final girl for sure, which I mean, in this movie, there wasn't really any options for a final girl. It's obviously going to be Hunter Schafer, but I liked seeing it. I thought she was quite good in the role.
I thought she was too nice to the sister. The sister basically threw her under the bus before she saved her. So I was kind of well, just leave her, man.
See, that's the arc though. Right at the beginning of the movie, she says something along the lines of she's not my sister. She's just whoever, or she sucks. She's so effing annoying, or something like that sort of thing. And and she's ableist about it too. It's she can't even talk. She's just so effing annoying. Yeah, I was oh wow, okay. That I was I like this character. She's she's problematic. She's not a perfect character, which it's always more interesting when your character has some flaws. So I didn't mind how by the third act, obviously a lot of it hinges on this kind of found sisterhood and kinship between them, and to almost once again some goofy effects. So I didn't mind that realistically. But yeah, once again, it's just this is a movie that the more it goes on, it's just the messier it gets. You literally have kind of the emotional and the climax of this movie be Hunter Schafer embracing her little sister and pushing her on a trolley while Dan Stevens is on one side firing a gun at this other guy on the other side, and they're both trying not to shoot Hunter Schafer and the sister because they each want to kill one of them, but for different reasons. It's just
the whole time where you I could easily shoot one of these people.
I was dude, I'm not a good shot, but
one guy's
a
cop. One guy's a cop,
yeah.
So he probably has training. I'm the kid's head's right there. Just shoot.
Or you could take out Dan Stevens on the other side. You could just put an end to all this and take out the guy shooting across from you. Speaking of which, I was kind of disappointed that he didn't die in the pool scene, Dan Stevens.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really quick ending, kind of a twist of the knife that I actually enjoyed in that scene, because that's it's a scene where it seems Gretchen's going to get away, or they're kind of ejecting her from this resort community and winds up bringing her back to his house, and it has obviously this forced breeding area in the pool. And I was oh, I kind of like this revelation that, this guy, whatever his name, I think Henry or whatever, comes in, mows down a couple of the armed guards and then even shoots Dan Stevens. And in that moment, I think we're supposed to presume that he's dead.
Yeah.
He gets shot center mass and instantly collapses on the ground. So I was oh, for such a big character, it's interesting that he got such a quick death, but then he just resurfaces in the third act with a shotgun to shoot some people right away, or an AK, whatever he has. And I was just oh, I liked you when you were dead five minutes ago. I thought it was an interesting, a bold choice.
Well, yeah, I thought it would have been an interesting twist, because I'm oh, he's dead, so I didn't think it was going to end, so I was okay, there must be something bigger going on, and we don't know, it's going to be some other wild twist that actually these camps are right next to the setup in the Watchers, and it's actually this is actually directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and it's just part of the family universe. But
it's just another trap.
That didn't happen. I will say with the sister and stuff, I did think a lot of the family stuff did work. I thought it was pretty interesting, pretty believable. I really liked the Louise, the dad. I thought he did a great job.
Okay. He was a nothing burger.
Yeah, no, but I just thought, that situation of obviously you have a child that I'm assuming he thinks is biologically his, and intertwining this just the whole story of Gretchen coming in, Gretchen obviously having lived with the mom and not the dad, and I just thought it was
want to be there,
interesting family dynamic.
Their move, yeah.
I really like Beth in this because of how off Beth seemed the entire time. So you're the entire first half of this movie, you're oh yeah, Beth is whatever's going on, Beth is in on this.
She's in on it, yeah.
And then, like, where it just does that flip where it's like, oh, wait, like, Beth is actually, like, kind of a victim here. Then, you know, it's this flip of, oh, wait a second. Like, the dad actually does know what's going on. So, like, I just thought they used the family dynamics really well in this.
Yeah, for me, the moments that worked probably with me from the family dynamics were obviously Hunter Schafer just calling her mom's voicemail, which, of course, we've all seen this in other movies now. I mean, like, you know, I feel like this has been a thing for like 10 or 15 years now and used to great effect most of the times, where it's like you lose a family member, you can continuously call their voicemail, and then eventually the voicemail gets cut off, and then, you know, it's always a heart-wrenching moment. But in this one, I liked how we got to hear what Hunter, or, you know, what Gretchen said earlier in the movie, but then we also got to hear a follow-up voicemail of her sister using, like, speech to text, or text to speech, sorry, and, like, basically saying, like, hey, I've been hearing, you know, Gretchen call you, like, can you give her a call back, tell her that you love her, and all that stuff. I was like, oh, like, at that point in the movie, Gretchen had, like, essentially no love for Alma. Like, there's been no, like, affection shown at all. That I thought that was a nice little kind of, like, a moment that kind of brings them closer together. And I also liked seeing, like, obviously the box of her mother's belongings kind of spill out and seeing all these, like, little moments of their life. And, you know, I like that stuff. The actual, like, unit, like, the family unit in Germany didn't really do much for me. But I liked kind of, like, the implied relationship between Gretchen and her mother. That part worked for me.
I want to shout out the guy in my theater that they're like playing the voicemails, and then when they play Alma's voicemail, he literally out loud to the entire audience just yelled, "That shit sounds like Stephen Hawking." And
wow.
I was like, someone had to say it. Someone had to say it. But
I mean, he's not wrong, but also probably not the best moment to shout that out in the theater. Oh my. And I guess, I don't know, the one last thing I want to mention before we rate this is the actual conclusion of the movie. Once again, I've already set up this scene of like getting pushed on a trolley, the hugging each other, people shooting guns at each other on opposite sides of the room. Goofy ass setup that would never happen a million years in real life. But then you have Alma, who, like, knows that she's one of these creatures as well, I guess. Like, put her hands over Gretchen's ears and, like, squeal and do the Cuckoo's calling herself. And I was just like, oh, man. You know, what are we doing? It felt actually kind of like an M. Night movie. It felt like the ending of, like, Split or something, where it's like, oh, the monster is now our friend, or something like that. Where I was like, okay, well, you know, she squeals and, you know, stuns them both and they kill each other. And I was like, very good. They drive off into the sunset with Ed in the car, who is, I don't know, very much not banged up, weirdly enough. Like, you know, Gretchen is, like, totaled, like, absolutely wrecked. But Ed seems like basically she's fine, and they just drive off into the sunset together. How did you feel about the ending of this?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like you, I was kind of like, whatever. Like I said, I mean, I was in for the zany ride, and, you know, it wasn't my favorite ending, but I was kind of whatever. I did love the fact that, like, they leave the hospital, and like you said, like, just this whole movie, like, Gretchen, just the shit kicked out of her, and I loved, like, just the complete collapse the minute she walks out. I giggled when, you know, she's trying to, like, open the door, and then it's like, fuck, now I gotta go through this hospital all over again, and then, you know, the sisters just uses the other door.
Let's try the other door.
Yeah. But, I love that, and, you know, Ed, whatever. I mean, I didn't think Ed was that cool. I didn't really get the attraction other than she gave Gretchen free weed. That was pretty much all she really did. But, you know, I was just kind of, I don't really know how you would have ended it with how wild this went in the third act. Like, I just
feel... I mean, you're not wrong. There isn't really a good ending, I don't think, for what they went. Because, once again, the plot just completely gets away from it. Like, there isn't, like, a clear narrative arc at the end of this that we need to see, you know, be paid off. It's just kind of like, whatever. And then it ends. And I was like, okay, good enough. You know?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the sister survives, and you know, that means there's more. There is Cuckoo alive and well, and, you know, the post-credit scene where it just focuses on Clive Owen's face, and he's like, but there's another. And then it just ends. Loved it.
Yeah, that was a great post-credit scene there. So if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give Cuckoo.
I'm going to give it a yay, I think. I had fun with it. This isn't, near or touching like a sleigh or anything, but like I had a really fun time. I thought it was a riot. I'd probably go see it again. I would be interested in the second watch to see how it holds up, because there's so many just like twists and turns of what they're expecting the audience not to know from like the very vague trailer they put out. So I'd be interested if that all holds up. But I mean, I thought it was a good time. I loved the time loop stuff. Like, I thought that was cool. I thought the music was amazing. Like I said, Dan Stevens to me was the best part of this. I just love him being able to do whatever wild accents and just the craziest characters he can come up with. And to me, it just made me interested in more of what like Tillman Singer will do next. Like, this has got my attention, I'll say that, where I'm like, okay, like, I think you made a fairly competent movie that, gave me some giggles, and I'm just interested to see what he'll do next, because this is a wild concept. Hopefully he has some wild-ass stuff in the future. So I'll give it a yay. What about you?
Yeah, for me, this one, I think I'm going to settle on an okay. It's the sort of movie where I think it has some really strong technicals, as I've mentioned in more so the spoiler-free section. I think it has some good performances, and I did very much enjoy the first act of the movie, kind of where there was still this mystery and this allure, and I didn't really know what sort of movie it was going to be. But as we kind of move further into the movie, I just think the narrative kind of gets away from it. There's some lulls, some more boring moments. It's a little bit too long, and ultimately, just in the third act, it just went too goofy. It showed the monster far too much, and I was just like, this was kind of a dumb third act. It was pretty stupid, but I thought the rest of it was fairly competent enough to at least get it to an okay for me, for sure. I didn't hate it, and I definitely would check out, what Tillman Singer was doing in the future. It's the sort of thing where maybe I will go back and watch his other movie. We'll see. It's similar to this, where it's kind of like mixed. It seems like people really vibe with it or don't. It seems like, once again, he has like a strong kind of stylistic voice and strong technicals in the movie, but it's just kind of a weird movie. So yeah, it's gonna be an okay from me. And if you're not doing so already, you can follow us on our socials at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and James, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, you said there was a few bangers in this movie, not as many as you would have liked. But are any of them making the playlist?
I'll have to see. Definitely some can make the playlist. I'd like to go back because, like I said, there was some of the score I thought was pretty strong, and whenever I can add some scores in there. So it's not just like, Mike and Rowan add synth pop music to a horror playlist.
Yeah, see if you can add just a 10-second clip of just screaming or squealing or whatever it is at the top of your lungs. Put that in there somewhere.
If we can't, me and Colton will recreate it and then upload it on Spotify.
Oh, there we go.
Cuckoo will be our new band name, and we just make that sound for an hour on a CD. So get ready to purchase that. But yeah, go follow the It Slays Podcast horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned. Go in the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So get your spooky music on, because why the hell not?
And next time on the show, I think it's time. For Alien Romulus.
Fuck yeah.
I checked the calendar. There's nothing else coming out. It's time for a new Fede Alvarez movie, and it happens to be from a pretty big franchise. So next time on the show, Alien Romulus.
I think the first time my theater's going to have like an advanced showing of a movie we have to do.
Oh, wow. And with that, I just want to say, I think I'm pretty proud of us. We never made any jokes about being a cuck.
That's right.
Thank God. Show. So, a big pat on the backs for us for that one. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.